Hello and welcome back to my craft room. I've got another quick easy little stitching project for you today using scraps. I'm going to be using scraps from my Bazaar scrap packs, scrap bundles, but of course you can use any scraps of fabric you've got. This time I'm going to be using scraps of fabric, kind of long narrowish. If you've got sort of long narrow pieces like that left, you could patch pieces together as well. And it's sort of fairly adaptable, but yeah, if you've got pieces this sort of size and shape knocking around, this is a good chance to use them. Let me show what I'm going to make. I'm going to be hand stitching all of mine today because I just love to sit and quietly hand stitch while I watch a bit of YouTube or something in the afternoons. But definitely you could do this project on a sewing machine and it would be really fast. And I think a lot of these little projects that I've been doing would be great if you want to start building up stock for a craft fair towards Christmas, or just of little gifts to give friends at Christmas as well. So yeah, bear that in mind. I think this would be another little filler for craft stores. Let's actually show you what I'm talking about. Well, you'll have seen it in the thumbnail. I'm going to call these handy bandies or handy bands. And they're just like a mini scrunchie, and I'm going to show you how to work it out depending on whatever size you want to do. So you could definitely just make it a bit bigger. For me, this would actually work as a scrunchie because I've got quite fine hair, and that would be enough to work as a scrunchie for me, but you could definitely upscale it. I've used a little button on the front of mine. Again, don't need a button. I've done some stitching just for the fun of doing it, but again, you don't need to do that. I'm going to show it with and without in a moment. So you can use these for all sorts of things. As I say, for me it would work as a hair scrunchie. Really good for keeping these little balls of thread in order if you've got those balls, especially with the slippier kind of thread that tends to come all unravelled. Just pop one of these around it, keeps everything in order, stops it rolling off the table. You could also, I did think, these are from fragrant candles. I burn a lot of fragrant candles, and I always keep the tins or jars that they come in to repurpose for other things if I can. And I thought if you made one of these, you could pop it around the neck of the jar, and I might try doing this at the end just so I can show what it looks like. If you cut a circle or made a little Suffolk puff to fit, you could put that inside to make the top of the jar fit as well, which I think would be a really cute idea. And then fill the whole thing with buttons or sweeties or sewing notions or a little nightlight, little fragrant nightlight or whatever. Can't get the top back on there. Okay. Obviously I haven't filled that up, but I think that would be a really cute little gift thing, or something to go on a craft stall at Christmas. I've also, with this one, you can see I've used it as a little kind of tidy for my earbuds. So these always get tangled up in my bag when I'm travelling. I use them when I'm travelling, and I always shove them back in my bag, and next time I get them out, they're all tangled up. So by using one of these, I can just wind them up, pop the little band around, and it keeps everything safe, and it looks really cute. I think that looks really cute. The idea came about because in one of my Bazaar scrap bundles, I had this little bundle of elastics. Now I reckon these had been cut to make face masks at some point during lockdown. They seem about the right size for that, don't they? And I looked at them and thought, oh, what can I do? What can I make with these? And it's one of the things that I love, the challenges of using these packs that I find really fun. I either think, well, I want to make whatever project I want to make, what have I got from here that I can make use of? Or, as in this case, I get something in the scrap bundle and think, what am I going to do with that? And I just love the challenge. It just it brings up all sorts of ideas I might not have thought of otherwise. I've got a few pieces here that I think are about the kind of right size and shape. You can adapt it to whatever you want. I'm also going to need pins or clips, some normal sewing thread, needles, and some more decorative sewing thread if you want to put decorative stitches on. And I've got a whole huge jar of vintage buttons, so this is an excellent chance to use some of those. But again, you don't need to do that. I'm going to do one just absolutely plain without any extra stitching or decoration, just so you can see what it looks like. There are also two ways of putting these. Basically, these are scrunchies together, so I'll show you both ways. I'm going to skip through the stitching because it's going to be very plain straight stitching, so I'm just going to skip through those parts and try and keep this video reasonable length. Says she. You can adapt this to be whatever size you want. For me, I've got these size little pieces of elastic, but of course I could knot them together. They'd still work for this. It wouldn't matter if there's a bit of a knot inside here. For me, because I'm thinking I'm going to use it to wrap around this ball of thread or around these earbuds or this jar, this is about the right size. But if I wanted to, I could definitely make it longer and knot them together. So decide what size elastic you want. 4mm. This is probably 4mm elastic. Which is fine for the small size, but if you were doing a big chunky scrunchie, maybe I'd go just a slight bit wider. Measure your elastic. I'm just going to hold this out. I'm not going to stretch it. I'm just going to sort of hold it straight, and that is about 10 centimeters. So I want my fabric to be twice as long or a bit more than the length of my elastic. Bearing in mind I will lose a bit of the length of the elastic when I knot it. But I want the gather to be generous. With this one, it was twice. I used twice the length of fabric to elastic, so it gives you that kind of amount of gather. So I need 20 centimeters long for my fabric. So that's long enough. I could use this piece. This across here, that would be quite nice. Any of these pieces would work. That would definitely work. I could do a longer one with that. This is what I've used for the one that's on the jar. Any of these would do. That would be really pretty as well. Okay, I'm going to go with this. Let's give myself a challenge of silk. So I want it to be at least 20 centimeters long, twice as long as my elastic, but it could be a bit more. So I'm not going to bother cutting it shorter. That's a little bit longer than 20 centimeters. That's fine. It's better to be a little bit more on the generous side, especially because this is quite a fine fabric. I'm just going to tidy that up a little bit. I don't need to worry too much. And then width wise, I've done mine half the length of my elastic. That'll be 5 centimeters. That's handy because I can just sort of follow that line. So I'm just going to cut up here. Because it's all gathered up, if your cutting line isn't quite straight or your stitching isn't quite straight, you're not going to notice. As I say, there are two different ways to put these together. I'm going to show you both. So for this first way, I've got the fabric right side up, and I'm just going to fold it in half lengthwise, and then I would either just use clips or pins. Or nothing at all and just hold it together as I go along. Yeah, you could definitely get away with it if you're confident to do it without. And I just need to leave a little turning gap here. So between where my fingers are, I'll leave a gap about there. Doesn't need to be very big, no bigger than that. So I'm just going to stitch a little. If you're doing it on the machine, just whip up to there, stop, whip up to there. If you're doing it by hand, I just did a tiny running stitch on these. It doesn't need to be a particularly strong seam, so I'm not going to bother about doing back stitch. I just want to make this a fairly nice, quick and easy project. And because I'm planning to do top stitching on it, that helps to strengthen everything anyway. So I'm just going to give myself about less than a centimetre, about half a centimetre, 1/4 of an inch ish seam allowance. Let's do a few double stitches just to start me off. As I say, I suppose if you're not lazy like me, do a little back stitch or whip along on the sewing machine. I'm going to do a tiny running stitch like this, and I think that's enough. This is not a seam that's going to take any strain at all, so oops, I've got to leave my gap nearly, didn't I? I'm keeping the stitches fairly small because I am just doing a running stitch here, so. But they're not exactly uniform and it's not exactly straight. I really want these little projects to be reasonably beginner friendly, you know. So you can see that if your stitching isn't perfect, don't let that stop you. You can still make little fun things out of these scraps of fabric, even if you're not an expert stitcher, because I'm certainly not. I'm come up to the end there. I'm going to do a couple of stitches there to anchor it. Take my needle out, but I'm going to leave the thread there because I can use that again in a minute. Now I'm going to need a little safety pin. I've got to mention about a safety pin. Okay, so I've got a little safety pin there. I've got to mention we're going to need that, sorry. So now I'm going to put this, my gap that I've left is down here. I'm going to go to this other end where I've just finished, and I'm going to put the safety pin through. I'm just going to put it through the seam allowance, not too close to the edge. I don't want it to pull away, especially because this is silk. And then I'm just going to put the safety pin back in through the tube that I've made. Making that look awkward, more awkward than it is. There we go. So I'm just popping it back inside like that, and I'm going to feed this safety pin through to the other end. Once I've got a little way along, I can sort of pull like this, and it will start to turn itself, the tube will start to turn itself inside out. Pull it a little bit further along. So now I've got to the point where the needles come out the other end. I'm not going to pull it right through like you would if you were going to turn this completely inside out. I'm just going to pull it partly out. Take the pin out. There's my seam. You can see where my seam is there. I'm going to match that up with the seam here. So I'm keeping that tube inside, lining up the raw edges, lining up where the seam is as best I can. I haven't been too fussy. And then holding those together. I think if you were working on a machine here, I don't think you could carry on and do this part of the machine. I think you'd need to get a needle and thread out of this bit. It's too small. I need my needle back. I'm just going to retrieve that bit of thread that I left threaded in, and now I'm just going to stitch around this top opening. So I'm not stitching it closed like that, I'm stitching all around so that the two ends of the tube are going to be stitched together. And I'm not going to bother trying to pin it, I'm just going to hold that with my hand. Just do a couple of stitches there to anchor everything. Again, I'm just doing a tiny running stitch because I just feel like that's enough. Silk is a bit slippy, I have to keep pulling it back into place. If you work with cotton, it's a lot easier. Seeing as this is such a short little bit of stitching, I think, and I've just done a running stitch, I'm just going to go around again. It's literally seconds to do it. Let's fold that seam allowance down. There we go, so I'm just overlapping my first line of stitch in there. Make it double safe. As I say, there are two methods of doing this. The other one doesn't. You don't do it this way. So you check out both. I'm going to timestamp this video so you can skip from one to the other and decide which one you want to do if you're following along. So now I've got both ends of the tube stitched one inside the other there. And now I can, here's the opening that I left that I didn't stitch up. I can turn the whole thing right way out through that little opening, so I'm just going to grab hold of that I love these little magical moments. And voila, we've got our little tube all stitched up, and there's the two ends that I've just stitched together. And you can see that looks a bit rough, really, that stitching. Maybe maybe a back stitch would have been better, but honestly, when it's all gathered up and I'm going to put a button over this seam bit anyway, I'm not going to worry about it. Here is the little opening that we left unstitched. So in a minute I will let's get rid of those ends because they're going to annoy me. I've lost it now. Where's it gone? Where's my opening? There we go. In a minute I will just hold those ends together and just do a little ladder stitch or overstitch them, or if you're on the machine, just do a little straight stitch close to the edge. You can see how quick it was. I've just done that by hand now, and it's a 5-minute job. So I'm quite happy to have little hand stitching projects that I can, as I say, I can sit and listen to an audiobook or watch a bit of YouTube while I'm doing them. So next thing is to get the elastic in. So I'm deploying the pin again, putting the pin through the elastic, not too near the edge. Again, you don't want it to break away. Important thing to remember here is to keep hold of the end of the elastic that's not on the pin. So I tend to hold that between a couple of my other fingers just to keep that from, you don't want that to go inside. And I'm just going to put my pin in through the opening. I thread this all the way around. So this one, I'm not adding any decorative stitching over the top. I'm going to show you what it looks like without that decorative stitching over the top. If you did want to do the decorative stitching, you want to do that before the elastic goes in. Still got hold of this end of the elastic. I'm coming near to the end now. And my pin's going to pop back up through the opening. Here we go. Undo the pin, and I'm just going to knot the two ends together. Pull that tight. I can trim that off a little bit, but I don't want to trim it too much because I don't want them coming undone. That seems pretty firm. And then I'm just going to pull that so that the knot pops back inside that hole. Stretch it out a couple of times to spread everything out. And you can see already that's the traditional kind of scrunchie shape, but a mini version of. So if you want to make a normal size scrunchie, just use the same formula. Just measure your elastic, do twice the amount of length of fabric, and make your width of your fabric half the length of the elastic, and that works out about right. So all I need to do now, I'll just use a bit of this red. I think should have used that for that seam as well. I just need to stitch that opening closed. I'm just going to use a ladder stitch. I won't bother to show you that because I've shown it before, and you can, if you do need a tutorial for ladder stitch, you can find them all over the place. Make sure those raw edges are all turned in. Sort of press those together helps a little bit. There we go. And then I'm just going to run a stitch along. Now, if I was doing my decorative top stitch on this one, I probably wouldn't even do this. I would start the decorative top stitching here and use it to close the opening. There we go, all done. My little handy bandy mini scrunchie, whatever you wanna call it. And even just plain like that without the button on, it's just a cute little, it's just a cute little thing. Cute. I've only been sat here, even with filming this and chatting and everything, I've only been sat here for less than half an hour. So let's show you the other method as well. So I'm going to make a bit longer one this time. So let's say this time I knot these two pieces together. I even wonder if, I end up accumulating elastic bands that come on my post sometimes, where the post is banded together. And also I get it with some of the organic veg in the veg box. And I wonder if I could use elastic bands for this same thing, actually. The fairly wide, tough ones. I've got any in this drawer. Yes, here we go. So I don't do them away because I think, they've got to be useful for something. I end up with a lot of these. And I just wonder if... I'll try one of them in a minute as well. Because if you haven't got elastic then... you don't need to go and get it specially. So this one then... 16 centimetres. So that would mean I'd want 32 centimetres. Let's see if this fits. This time I'm going to do it differently. So last time we folded it lengthways like that. This time I'm going to join the two ends first. And this is a method I think some people call the burrito method. So this time I'm going to sew these two ends together. Okay. Just come into the end there. Do a few little stitches just to anchor that. Okay, so I've done my seam. I've sort of finger pressed it flat. I'll lay it out in front of me like that. And now this is where it gets to be a bit like a burrito. You can see why it's called the burrito method. Because what I'm going to do is just take this top layer and sort of roll it up in the middle here. Fold it up in the middle like that. And then I'm going to take these two edges and put them together. You see that? So I'm folding that up out of the way. That's now going to be in the middle. And I'm putting these two edges together. And I'm just going to start stitching. With, again, about 1/4 of an inch or like 1/2 centimetre seam allowance. Oh, it'd probably help if I had my thread actually in the needle. Would definitely be very quick to do this on a machine, but maybe a little bit fiddly with the rolling bit. And if I wasn't trying to do it reasonably quickly for a demo, perhaps I would bother to do a back stitch. But I think this will be fine. With this one I'm going to be adding my top stitching as well, so now I've just stitched a little way along, and now I'm just going to pull out, because I'm coming towards the end there, I'm just going to pull along a little bit more, and then keep holding these edges together. I can feel that I'm not catching up any extra layers inside. Pull along a little bit more. And as I'm doing this and pulling it along, it's turning itself inside out, the same way as when we put the safety pin through before. Come back to the seam bit now, try and make sure those seams match up. It's not quite matching up, but it's near enough. And I've got to remember again to leave an opening, so when I can see that I'm getting back to near where I started, I've got to remember to leave that little inch or so open to turn it through. I hope that's making sense, that method. It sounds a bit strange when you first try it, but once you actually just do it, it feels fairly obvious. So again, I've come to the end there. This is turning itself inside itself and I just keep pulling it through, and that keeps pulling more through and giving me more space to stitch along here. So just pull through a little bit at a time. Don't try and pull the whole thing through, it won't work. And make sure you're always stitching just through the two thicknesses here, you're not catching everything that's on the inside. Must be coming fairly near to the end now. Yep, I can see my beginning stitching coming through now, so I'm not going to go too much further, just up to about there. That'll be fine. I've done a couple of double stitches there to anchor it. I'm just going to take the needle out of my way, but I'm going to leave the thread because I can use that for the closing up. So that's it, I've come to the end now, and I can go inside that hole and pull everything out through this hole. Okay, and again we've ended up with a tube with the seam already done. And here's my opening. If I wasn't a lazy bin, I would get an iron out and press it now at this stage, but what I'm going to do is work my way around and just finger press it, and on this one I'm going to do some decorative top stitching. So I'm just going to carry on finger pressing this, dig out some coordinating thread because I don't think I could use that one. Maybe I'll just use that one. I don't like that green on it. I could pick out a coordinating green or a contrast, maybe a bit of a lilac colour or something could be quite pretty on there. Okay, seeing as that's what I've got in front of me, I'll use that beige colour just. So when I finish my decorative stitching and put my elastic in, then I will come to close up the opening here. Again with just a little neat overstitch or ladder stitch, or if I was using a machine I'd just do a straight stitch close to the edge. So I've got my tube, I've pressed it flat with my fingers. Now I'm going to add some decorative stitching. Now what you need to bear in mind if you want to do some decorative stitching, and I just do it, doesn't need it, I just do it because I just love to do it. So like here I've just done rows and rows of straight stitching. I need to leave a little channel there, enough for my elastic to go through and see where the knot is there. And the other thing that you need to bear in mind is you've got to thread the elastic in. So I'm going to do some rows of straight stitching here, leave a little channel for my elastic, and then some more rows of straight stitching here, but this is where I'll be feeding the elastic in. So where this bit is, I need to leave a gap in all these rows of stitching, and I'll finish them off after. So let's just get this will just be very quiet, relaxing and completely unnecessary stitching, straight stitching, because I just love to do it. It's not structurally important or anything, and of course it does make them gather up in a different way as well. So if I take this one off of here you've got, this is just the classic scrunchy look, which is nice as well, whereas with these ones you get more of a kind of a ruffle effect, which is also nice. It just depends, I like them both. So because I've got that handy little opening, I'm just going to put my needle in there. I can lose the end of my thread that way, and I'm going to do the rows of stitching furthest away from the opening first, and I'm just going to do little rows of straight stitching all around here. I just love the look of it. I've got this piece I've already shown before, which came in one of the Bazaar scrap packs, and I've been saving it for special to like tie a journal wrap with or something, because it's just so beautiful, and it's just two thin pieces of cotton with rows and rows of straight stitching and a just slightly lighter shade of green. I just love it. I love the look of it. I love the feel of it. Yeah, so that is what I'm going to do on this. There's no point in you sitting and watching me do rows and rows of straight stitching. For anybody that's interested, I'm using 2 strands of a stranded cotton or embroidery thread, embroidery floss, and I like a long needle for this kind of thing, because then you can pick up several stitches in the same run. So I'm going to work my way around. When I come to doing the last bit and putting the elastic in, I'll be back and show you how I'm finishing it off and what it looks like. There we go, I've finished doing that. I feel really nice and relaxed now. So I've done 4 complete rows of stitching all the way around this edge, left a gap in the middle, and then I've done 4 rows of stitching around here. So this is the edge with the opening on it, but I've left a gap in my decorative stitching where the opening is, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to get my elastic through. And I can finish the decorative stitching once the elastic's in, and that will also, I'll also use that to close the edge. So I'm going to get my piece of thread ready now. Got my safety pin through the elastic. Keep hold of this end in between my other fingers there, and I'm going to pop in through the opening and straight through to that middle. Oh, one thing that's worth trying to work out before I get started is I've got the seams going both ways. So sometimes what I thought I had done was press all the seam allowance one way, and it's better to start, if the seam allowance is pressed this way, it's better to come at with this, it's better to come at it from that direction. Otherwise you can end up getting a bit stuck in where the seam allowance is, but that's okay. I can fiddle it through anyway. It's just worth bearing in mind. Okay, keep hold of my end, and I'm just going to start feeding this through that middle channel. Oh look, I've gone straight through the seam allowance without even noticing it, so it wasn't a problem this time. It can be sometimes, you can end up getting a bit stuck on it inside. It goes between the layers, you know, you just have to go back and forth a couple of times if that happens. Go feed that all the way through till I come back to where I went in. Bring my pin up. I've still got hold of this end. Take the pin out. Make a knot. Pull that out so that the knot pops back inside. Do it a few times, that just like kind of spreads the gathers out. There we go. Cute. This one's come out a bit wider. I'm going to use the decorative stitching to do my close. I'm just going to hide that knot on the inside. Hold the 2 edges together and just complete those lines of straight stitching. Just going to come down, gone between the layers of fabric, so I don't want that cross stitch to show that way, so I've gone between the layers of fabric, and then I can just go back and do this other row, because I did 4 rows of stitching altogether on each side. So actually, as I start this kind of a stitching project like this, where it's quite sort of relaxing, I literally feel my shoulders kind of drop and kind of as I start. I just, yeah, very meditative. And I just love the look of all these straight stitches. I just do. Let's do a little double stitch to finish off. And wiggle the needle in between the layers to lose that end. And now I can choose, if I want to, I can choose a vintage button to go on it, and I think I do. Right, I'm going to stitch this button on, and then I think I've got another scrap of this fabric in one of the packs. I'm going to try making a Suffolk puff to fit in there and see what that would look like. Just because I'd like to, yeah, just because I'd like to try it out. And I can show you how it would look. I've realised that I've done these a bit uneven, so there's more on that side than that side, a little bit, but not a lot in it. Doesn't matter. Right, I couldn't find any more of that fabric, so I found a kind of a coordinating fabric. I think they look nice because I've used these two together before. And what I've done is I've done my Suffolk puff and stuffed it out with a little bit of cotton wool, because I think this would double up as a pin cushion, because I've had an idea which I hadn't intended in the first place, but hey. So I've stuffed it fairly firmly with the cotton wool, and I'm just gonna put some anchoring stitches in now. So now I've got a little stuffed Suffolk puff, or yo-yo, a stuffed puff, and I'm gonna put that inside the lid of this jar. I think that way up. And I hadn't thought this idea through because it's only just occurred to me. But my idea is that it will look pretty from there. It coordinates nicely with this. I've got some of my clips in it. Okay, so now I'm going to take a couple of pins just to try it out. Oh, I think maybe cotton wool isn't the best thing as a pin cushion. It would have been better if I'd have gone and got a bit of wadding. I thought cotton wool would be okay, but yeah, I'll have to open that and redo it with some wadding like this kind of thing in it. I think the cotton wool is a bit dense to use as a pin cushion, but you can see the idea that I could stuff that full of pins. It really needs this plastic bit because that's making it hard to seal it up. The whole thing still smells of the fragrant candle that was in there. Yeah, I mean, this doesn't need to be sealed. I'm wondering if I can just take this off. I don't need it to be airtight anymore. It'll make it easier to go on and off. Yeah, that's better. Yeah. So yes, I will restuff that with some wadding. Quite good for stuffing in certain situations, but not if you want to put pins in and out of it. Okay, so then I would go. Make a really nice cute little gift. So I've got clips and pins in the same little pot. Nice. It's a bit rattly without the plastic there, but the plastic was annoying me, so and it could just as well be buttons in there, or as I say, little sweeties, or all kinds of little bits and bobs could go in there. I really like that. It's nice to get an extra idea you hadn't even thought of. There we go. I think that's the best I can do for my thumbnail. It's very hard to make them look as pretty as they look in real life. You'll wonder how you ever manage without them. So that's it. I'm going to sit and make a few more of them, I think, and I'm going to make a few in different sizes depending on what scraps I've got and stuff. And I just think they're going to be really useful little things that I'll keep a bunch of them. I'll probably use another one of those jars to keep them in. I've got a big one as well, so yeah. Okay, that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that gave you a little idea. If you have a play with this idea, please do share some pictures with me, either in the Discord community or in the Facebook group. I'll put my link tree in the description box so you can find your way to both those things. I'll also put a link to Bazaar, where I get these scrap packs from. Obviously you can do these, you don't have to go and buy anything specially, but if you do want to, I thoroughly recommend Bazaar. I love that it's all rescued, reclaimed fabrics that would end up in landfill otherwise. And and don't forget, if you did make an order from Bazaar, remember in the add a note to seller bit at the end at checkout, if you put Arty Farty Annie treat in there, you'll get a little extra doodad with your order, which is always nice. Okay, I'm going to stop waffling now. Thank you very much for joining me today, and I will see you again really soon. Bye.